Derek, this is your jam, right?
Yeah.
What's up, everybody? We are here, finally. And we are the Fantasy Insiders Daily Fantasy MLB show, sponsored by FantasyElite, the app that you can get in the App Store. Derek and Davis have drafted? Question mark? Yeah.
True story.
True story they have. So, good stuff. And we will be talking about that draft. Also, just a big night in the industry for some big tournaments. DraftKings rolled out their big qualifier tournament for Atlantis. And then FanDuel responded by doing a 100K strikeout. So, never bad when sites are basically trying to compete and keep up with the other one. You know, it's how
many entries are you throwing into the super strikeout tonight, Kitchen?
Probably have 5 or 6. I don't know. I haven't even. I've been so wrapped up in other stuff today that I haven't even looked. Is it already filled up?
I don't know. I only have one team so far.
It's probably.
Yeah, I'll go over to the FanDuel lobby right now. I bet there's no way it's filled up.
I don't know, man. They underestimate tournaments big time sometimes. So
no. Oh wow, there's only 300 spots left.
Yeah. They can make tournaments so much bigger, but for some reason they don't. I do have a few free tickets to the DraftKings tourney tonight. So, yeah, I'll probably make some teams real quick to make sure I have a sweat there. But tonight, a big night. Obviously, pitching, the biggest point to talk about. So I will let you guys handle it.
Is there really that much to talk about with pitching now? I feel like everyone's making this a much bigger deal than it is.
Okay.
I feel like if it's just you and me, like I'm sure we're gonna agree on everything tonight. But like, there's a lot of people that I feel like are completely like against the way we're leaning tonight with pitching.
Okay, so I mean, the way I'm leaning is like Strasburg is the consensus #1 play. Like, yeah, I think I am a little different than you in that I think there is something to the fact that Miami hits better at home, but I don't really care. Like, honestly, Strasburg's so good that I don't really care.
It's not like I don't think there's a thing. Like, there could easily, every time I write up someone against Miami now, I write up, there may be something going on here where they have cameras out in their ridiculous center field home run sculpture and they're stealing signs or like something. I mean, they haven't been hitting as well at home lately as they did in the first few months of the season, but still, like, it's something to take into consideration. But Strasburg's just so good, and Miami in general just isn't. So Strasburg's easily the top option tonight.
Yeah, and for all the hand-wringing that everyone has about him, I mean, he's giving up less than a home run per 9 innings, and that's with an exaggerated home run to fly ball rate that's going to come back down to normal. His fielding independent pitching is at 2.83. His xFIP is at 2.5. And even outside of all that, say you don't believe in all that stuff, his ERA is better than league average. The league average ERA at the break was 3.9. His ERA is 3.6. So you would take that with a pitcher who strikes out 10 guys per 9 innings anyways. So where are people getting this from?
I feel like a lot of people are kind of off him or like hesitant about him because they've been burned a couple times. He's had a couple of not so good outings in matchups that should have been good ones. He hasn't had like a truly dominant outing, like a 10 strikeout, 0 run, like 8 inning outing in like forever. Like he hasn't had 0 runs in like 2 months. But
well, he did have he had 7 innings, 11 Ks, I think maybe 5 or 6 starts ago, and then he gave up a dong in the 8th inning and then got replaced. Yeah.
So, I mean, I just feel like a lot of it is just anecdotal with people not being on Strasburg just because it hasn't worked out perfectly the way, like, it will with Kershaw or Felix or guys like that recently, even though Strasburg is in their level talent-wise.
I will absolutely admit that Steven Strasburg is one of the most frustrating human beings alive. Like, he definitely is the sort of guy who will, like, strike out the 1 through 3 hitters and then give up a double to the pitcher. Like, it's obviously incredibly anecdotal, but like it just when you're watching him pitch, that's what it feels like. And a lot of his struggles, if you go look at his Fangraphs page, come from the fact that when he gets ahead of hitters, he has a hard time retiring them. And I don't expect that to continue just because his stuff is so good.
So you're saying I should try to work Henderson Alvarez into my hitting lineup tonight, is what you're
Yes.
saying? Yes. Okay.
On Sports Trade X, I believe it is, your pitchers' hitting stats count. Is that
Do they
correct,
really?
David? David's not paying attention to me.
I really don't know if it. I got, not to bash any site, but I haven't played on Sports Trade X.
I'm pretty sure that pitchers' hitting stats count there. I'd have to go double check for sure, but I'm pretty sure I saw someone tweet that the other day. So for whatever that's worth. But I mean, it's just people are being ridiculous, and as someone who is incredibly biased in almost all aspects of their life, I can tell you that even I, after getting burnt by Strasburg a couple times, can tell you, like, starting him against the Brewers was just a bad idea. Either start. They're an incredibly good hitting team. Like,
It wasn't a bad idea. It's not like there were a ton of options that night. He was going to have the platoon against all of them, like, especially when it was in Nationals Park.
Yeah, you just can't expect a top elite outing from him in that scenario, in my opinion, because he's not there yet. Like, if you go back and look at Kershaw's numbers when he was Strasburg's age, he was walking 5 guys per 9 innings and had a 4.5 ERA.
Mm-hmm.
These guys don't become the pitchers who they are overnight. And I feel like a lot of people think Strasburg is a lot older than he is because he debuted at such a young age. But he's still, I'm looking up his exact age, I'm pretty sure that he is like 26 years old. Yeah, so he's only 26 years old, which sounds kind of old, but for a pitcher, that is before his prime.
Yeah, I think Strasburg's easily your top option tonight. And I think if you fade him in your cash games, especially like your single pitcher FanDuel cash games, I think it's a mistake. I mean, there are other options tonight, but he's easily going to be the safest one. And that's not to say he's guaranteed to do anything. I mean, some nights the safe option, gets blown up. Like, I don't know. What's the recent example of that?
Mad Bum last night.
Mad Bum last night, although there was you, but Mad Bum last night's a good example. If he wasn't pitching, Bumgarner would have been the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Wainwright a few weeks ago, or not even a few weeks ago, went that night where the pitching was just ugly. Yeah, he was the only guy you should have been looking at, and he got rocked.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
that just happens.
It happens sometimes, but it doesn't mean it's not the right play. So Strasburg should be your guy tonight.
Okay, so we got that conversation out of the way. I think what we might differ on a second option. I think that I like Samardzija more than Ross as a second pitching option. How do you feel about that?
I like Samardzija as my third cash game option. I like Ross more. I like Samardzija early in the day. I wasn't on too much because, I mean, he's still adjusting to the American League with the DH. It's not a very good park. Houston is a pretty good offense, but some of the other guys have kind of fallen off for me throughout the day. Like Alex Cobb is off my radar now that Jose Molina isn't catching. The umpire in Samardzija's game is a very favorable one for pitchers, so he shot up my list a little bit. Lance Lynn, I'm not totally sold on without Yachty helping him out. So I think Samardzija is a really good option tonight, kind of just by process of elimination. But I do like Ross more. I like that Ross is at home in Petco Park. So even though he's not going to have the platoon advantage against some strong lefties from the Cardinals, Petco is really unfavorable for lefties, so that's going to help him. And a lot of the research I was doing about Ross today really kind of showed me that I think he can be effective against left-handed batters. He throws his slider a lot more than you would expect a guy to throw a slider against lefties too.
Yeah.
But the way he uses it, his pitchability is so good. He's not the kind of guy who's going to blow you away with his stuff. His fastball isn't that great. There's not a lot of speed differential or vertical movement differential to change up hitters' eye levels between his fastball and his breaking stuff. He's got his fastball, he's got his changeup, and he's got his slider. There's 8 miles an hour difference between his fastest and his slowest. But he knows how to use them, and that's really what I like about him. And I think that's why the platoon thing doesn't worry me too much with Ross, because he uses that slider as a backdoor slider against lefties, and he puts it right at their knees, where one of his good pitch framing catchers can frame it for him, Grandal or Rivera.
Yeah.
And I just think between that and between Petco helping with the lefties, I think he's in really good position tonight.
Yeah. So the reason that I'm on Shark is pretty simple, is that he is a minus 220 favorite rather than a minus 110 favorite, and it's pretty obvious why. I mean, the offense behind him is probably set up for the best in all of baseball. But it's also worth noting that Houston's only projected to score 3.4 runs by Vegas run lines, so that's pretty solid as well. And Samardzija is a good K pitcher against a high K lineup that. I mean, everyone knows I like the Astros, but like I'm still comfortable, especially with Springer out of the lineup. I do think he is their best hitter. I think Altuve might be their best like fantasy sort of option. Well, he has probably a higher OBP, but it's between
Altuve is a better
Springer.
pure hitter, but yeah, Springer is
their best player, and he's not been in their lineup. And John Singleton is just a strikeout waiting to happen almost every single night. So I'm fine with him as an option tonight. I think that's probably who I'm using on DraftKings. And also, not that I believe in dollars per point for pitchers, because I think that you should just get the most points possible, which is why I took Darvish last night over Bumgarner. But I think Samardzija probably has the best chance at getting the win as well as getting strikeouts.
I couldn't fault anyone for going Samardzija as their second pitcher on DraftKings. If you go Strasburg and Samardzija, or you go Strasburg and Ross, I'm fine with that. I mean, honestly, I might split my lineups and go, half and half with those two combinations.
Okay, there's some like other intriguing options. So I mean, there's Lance Lynn, who just is death to right-handed batters and can't seem to get lefties out. Luckily for him,
that's not true.
Oh, it's not. See, I saw a Fangraphs thing. Someone tweeted it today that said if Lynn only faced right-handed batters, he would be like the best pitcher in the National League.
There's like such like this perception about him, and it's just not there. Like even his splits this year, I'm pretty sure have normalized, and his repertoire doesn't suggest an extreme splits player. Like I don't get it. He's had like 2 years. He's had like 3 years in the majors experience total, and like people are basing like their whole vision of who he is based on these 3-year splits. And it's just not enough, especially when you look at who he actually is as a pitcher.
Hey, Derek, your repertoire.
Nice.
I mean, the
other thing that worries me about Lynn is that all his numbers, basically his entire career, have been posted with Yadier Molina as his catcher. And Yadi's on the DL, so you have to dock him for that. That being said, he's still a good option in Petco against San Diego. I mean,
yeah. Okay. I don't really like any of these other guys. Like, I'm sure if there's definitely a contingent out there who thinks Francisco Liriano is a good play tonight.
I think Liriano's risky, but
me.
I mean, I played him the last time based on basically the same logic I would use for him tonight, which is that he has some platoon issues. The other team is going to have the platoon against him often, but the park is really going to help him. The park is just set up perfectly to help a guy who has platoon issues against righties. So it's not like I'm going to play Liriano in my cash games, but as a GPP guy, I really like him.
Yeah. Just a quick thing that I would like to bring up. Trevor Bauer could very easily have a hand in deciding whoever wins the ticket on DraftKings or the Super Strikeout on FanDuel, either by being the pitcher who wins it for him or by giving up like 9 home runs to a lefty-heavy Seattle lineup. Like, there's just, I've said this before, but Trevor Bauer's just a crazy person. Like, a lot of the times he doesn't know where the ball is going because he can't repeat his pitch delivery. Now, I know he's worked on that, and that's part of the reason that they've kept him up this year instead of sending him back down. But I really like him as both a tournament option and sort of stacking against him in a lower-level GPP this week.
Yeah, it's hard to know what to expect of him. He's been more good than bad this year. Like, he's been better than he's ever been this year, but there's still that, like, that uncertainty with him where he could just get lit up if he's not, on.
Like, and regardless, like, I like Kyle Seager because Seager has such good plate discipline that, like, he's just going to sit and let Bauer do his thing and either, like, stroke one, like, into the gap or just take his free base. Mm-hmm. He was one of the guys that I wrote up today in the Daily Diamond, and I really like him at third base. Do we even need to mention any of these other pitchers? I feel like it's just really narrow in terms of the guys you want to use tonight. I mean,
I just want to I want to point out that Josh Beckett is 5th on my rankings, but I would not take Beckett tonight. He's hurt, so that's not incorporated, and he's kind of... I mean, he could get shut down if he's not traded by the All-Star break. I feel like the Dodgers are kind of just hoping that he can do enough to maybe, so they can get rid of him. But Beckett's not a guy I would trust in his current state.
Okay. Looking at these guys, I mean, does James Shields... I know some people were talking about him earlier.
A little bit, but yeah, I don't know. Shields doesn't really do it a whole lot for me. I don't know.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't at all do it for me.
With all the other options out there, he's not really on my radar. I mean, Hamels is in a decent spot, but he's more expensive than anyone today, so you're not going to pay for him when everyone else is cheaper. When Strasburg is cheaper, or Ross or Lynn or Samardzija is cheaper, so... No, I think we pretty much covered our guys. I think Brandon McCarthy as a GPP guy, just because some of the changes he's made bringing back his cutter that Arizona told him to, get rid of for whatever reason. He's just been awesome with the Yankees, and there's a lot of reasons for it that I wrote about today. Arlington's not good, but as a GPP guy, I could see throwing him out there.
All right, then let's start on what is probably going to be the longest conversation of any position today, because I do really think that well, first of all, let's talk about stacks. I mean, and this will tie into our catcher conversation, but obviously the best stack of the day would be the Yankees. Now, a couple things are going against that. One, Teixeira has been hurt and has a cold flag in Derek's system. And two, Brian McCann is batting, what, 6th?
Yeah.
5th?
Yeah, he's batting 6th.
And Headley, who would be one of the better plays, is batting 7th. And really, the reason that all this is happening is that they keep playing Derek Jeter in the 2-hole instead of batting him 8th like any other reasonable team would do with a player that bad.
But Davis, it's Derek Jeter, future Hall of Famer, Gold Glove shortstop.
Well, I mean, I guess when your team isn't trying to win games, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, so that just throws off their entire lineup. Like, if Jeter batted in a normal spot, you could just sort of... The rest of their lineup would be exactly where they were supposed to be, but that is not the case.
No, it is not. And having him second just screws it up for everybody else. Not that I would really trust the Yankees anyway. I mean, they would be a GPP stack for me because there's just so many question marks in that lineup between McCann getting shifted on, between Beltran and his elbow spur, Teixeira being cold and, all the stuff you were talking about with him. So even though Martinez is the worst pitcher going today, and even though he's a guy you theoretically should want to pick on, especially in Arlington, I would just have a hard time doing it with the Yankees in general.
Yeah.
So I think more...
I still want to use them. Like, at the very least, I still want to use Teixeira, even over Moss on FanDuel. Now on DraftKings, you don't have to make that choice because you can just slot Moss in the outfield. And sort of the thing is I don't know if I would stack Angels tonight against Tillman, but if anyone's gone over pricing already, and I'm sure they have, Mike Trout is underneath 5K on FanDuel. Seems like maybe a pricing error. I don't know what happened. Like,
yeah,
that's just stupid.
Yeah, he's really cheap on FanDuel. He's in my lineup right now. He's 4,800. And then, of course, he doesn't even have the platoon advantage. Not that it really matters for him at that price or in general, but you have guys who do have the platoon advantage, like Calhoun, who's 3,500 on FanDuel now, and it's just a ridiculous play. On DraftKings, he's really cheap too, 4,300. So those guys are going to definitely be in my lineup. Even Pujols batting 3rd, in the midst of all that thing, with like a big park bump. I could see playing him tonight. So I think there's definitely some Angels bets you can consider stacking, or at least like a little mini stack.
Okay, well, Tuttle is trolling me in the chat and saying that is a pricing error. I mean, it might not be. It's not like it's not like a Hunter Pence Hunter Pence min pricing error. Like, I don't think anyone fat fingered it, but Mike Trout should never be not the most expensive player.
I would agree with that. I don't know if I'd call it a pricing error either, but his price is exploitable. We'll say that.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, I don't know why anyone would ever question me on this. Like, he is a significantly lower portion of the cap on FanDuel than he is on any site Fantasy Elite, Draft Day, DraftKings, Fantasy Aces,
Mhm.
like whatever site you want to talk about, there is a big difference in what FanDuel did with his price today than any other site. And so even if you're not necessarily looking at stacking Angels, I think he's close to a must play on FanDuel.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't know if I'd call him a must play, but especially with Strasburg being a lot cheaper than we're used to for aces, I think there's a lot of ways to get Trout into your lineup.
Yeah, and for anyone who is looking at the chat right now, it's all well and good what Soccer Dave and Tuttle are doing, but I think that if we were just gonna run it over for a lifetime and we were gonna get Mike Trout at not the most expensive player on the board or like this level of the cap on any site, and you just played him every day regardless of matchup, that would be a plus EV decision. And the fact that he's against Chris Tillman, who is like an okay pitcher but not very good, makes it even easier.
And the park shift is so huge. Did you mention that?
No, I did not.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of why this matchup is so good. I mean, Tillman's not a bad pitcher. He's, average or maybe a little below average, whatever you want to say, but the park shift is huge going into Camden Yards, so...
Yeah, I don't know why everyone's having such a hard time with this. Like, yes, $200 absolutely matters on FanDuel. Like,
it doesn't matter enough to call it a pricing error. I think they're just busting your balls over that.
I think it's a price. Like, I think it is an oversight or something, because it's not even like Trout has been like cold recently. Whatever. Let's start talking about catchers though. So okay. McCann for a long time came up very high in your system. And then you did some adjustments that is going to basically weighted the fact that he kind of sucked this year more heavily, and he still came out really good in your system today. So I think you should talk a little bit about why maybe you aren't playing him.
Yeah, well, his underlying projection went down, so he's not going to be showing up as high as he otherwise would. And eventually we're going to make additional changes to him. Maybe not this year because the data we need is hard to come by. But basically... why I'm fading McCann today, despite there being a good matchup. I mean, he's in a really good park with the platoon advantage against the worst pitcher of the day. So normally you're like, okay, McCann, easy play. But McCann, what his projection isn't fully comprehending right now is that teams are shifting against McCann more than twice as often as they did last year. So that means he's hitting a lot of balls just right at players. And... they're getting turned into easy outs. And then to compensate, what he's tried to do is he's trying to go the other way more. And historically, he's never had any power going the other way. So it's sapping his overall line. And then the mechanical changes that he's made to try and go the other way more and to try and work around this shift, he's having trouble adjusting to, and it's throwing off his timing. So just in general, McCann is just a mess right now. And the timing is really thrown off against guys who... against harder pitches, against faster pitches. And even though Martinez is bad, he uses his fastball like 65% of the time, and it's 92 miles per hour.
Yeah,
so
even though
he's bad, it can just the speed can still throw off McCann's timing enough where I'm not going to risk him today when there's other catching options available.
Yeah. So Kyle Cannon just asked in chat, vote greater than McCann. And see, I'm sort of split on this because I wrote vote up as my number 2 catching option. Now, he is batting 6, which is not what I expected, but you and I have a different opinion on what that means in this context. Now, if you were going to take all of the math forever for every team that's ever existed, the shift from 2nd to 6th in like value is huge. But in the context of the Oakland Athletics, I'm not sure that it matters as much just because they're so good.
For good teams... your at-bat expectation is going to increase the more runs the team scores because you're going to go around the order more often and you're going to come up more often. But still, batting order has to matter. And vote is going to, he's going to have a value downgrade today, which sucks because if he was batting 2nd, he'd be one of the top catchers. I see this face, Davis. I'm not reading the chat room, but something has to be going on.
They said it must be a managerial error that vote at 6th. I mean, if you're gonna ask me, it is a managerial error. Jed Lowry sucks. All the Oakland catchers forever.
So yeah, vote. I think his price definitely makes him an option tonight, but he's not going to like earlier today when I thought he might be batting 2nd. He was like in my lineups like all the way. Now there's going to be some other options. I think Devin Mesoraco is actually my top guy tonight, and I faded him last night for stupid Derek Norris because Davis loves Derek Norris, and Derek Norris was batting down in the order.
Oh,
And-
so results-based, Derek. So results-based.
Okay, well, this is process-based. Devin Mesoraco is a legit player. He's up against Cahill, who is a complete mess in Great American Ballpark. He's my top catcher tonight.
But
And there's-
Mesoraco does have, basically his entire career is a short sample. Now, granted, he has absolutely raked over that short sample, and so has Vogt. But I'm
Well, no, he struggled
devil's
the last
advocate.
couple years, but this year he's raked. But I think there's reason to believe in this year over the past couple years. If you look at what he's done mechanically, he used to do like this weird like timing mechanism with like a toe tap and then like an awkward like leg thing with his swing. Now he's just like very clean, just like a firm foot planted down, and he's getting through the ball a lot better.
What is he like,
Eh.
Garrett?
Yeah.
Yeah. Looks like you were.
It's
like
at
you
a
were putting
desk,
down
it's
a
hard
mean
to,
bunt
like,
there.
show what he's doing with his foot, but basically he's just getting his foot planted a lot firmer. It's improving his timing, and it's getting him a lot better, like just getting his hands to the ball a lot easier and a lot quicker, and he's just making more solid contact with it. And that's what he needed to do. At the minor league level, he could get away with his timing being a little bit off against weaker pitching, but at the majors he couldn't. Now that he's in the majors and he's made this adjustment, the pedigree is there and the underlying skills are there for him to be an elite catcher. And in a really good matchup today, he's definitely getting my vote over Steven Vogt.
Oh, nice.
But Jaso over both of them if you're spending, though.
No, Mesoraco over Jaso over Vogt.
No, absolutely not. Jaso leading off for that lineup is just like unfair. Like the fact that every other catcher bats like 5th or 6th, and Jaso gets to lead off. And also with Coco Crisp not going to play in this series and Gentry back on the DL, he's not getting pitch hint for. He just won't
No,
get.
but not to say Jaso isn't good play. Jaso's probably my second catcher or third catcher tonight, but I like Mesoraco better.
Everyone in the chat who's saying I'm going away from Jaso, I'm not. It's just he's finally expensive. Like the sites finally fixed their pricing error and realized like how amazing John Jaso is. I mean, honestly, if Jaso was expensive as Trout, like I wouldn't say that was a pricing error.
Davis Maddox world.
Yeah, we just spent a long time on catcher though. So personally, for me, it would be if I'm spending Jaso. If I'm not, I'm gonna go Vogt. But I also am not as anti-McCann as you because I just think Nick Martinez is that bad.
I think he's that bad, but I don't think he profiles particularly well given what McCann is actually struggling with right now. So if I'm spending, I go Mezzo. If I'm not, I still maybe go Vogt.
Okay, so let's move on. Let's talk about middle infield. Middle infield kind of sucks today. So something I saw with the way lineups came out is Chris Taylor. I think he's second base and shortstop eligible on DraftKings. Is min-priced batting second versus Bauer. And and then Ramon Santiago batting second against Cahill is min-priced on FanDuel for second base. I would like to have enough dollars to spend on Arizmendi Alcantara, but it's just looking hard to do that right now.
You just like saying
Yeah,
his name.
No, he's really good, and he's still, I don't think, priced appropriately on FanDuel.
No, he's not, and he's playing at home in Wrigley. Even though there's no wind, it's still a good park, and he's against De La Rosa, who is just awful against righties, so Alcantara is going to be batting from that side. Alcantara is my top guy tonight, if you can fit him in, and I do think he's reasonably priced. Like, Davis is like, no more Alcantara, guys. He's not 2,200 on FanDuel.
No.
But
I'm starting to transition the analysis on the show more to DK prices because I
Uh-huh.
think more of our listeners play there than FanDuel, actually.
Okay. What is he? I feel like I had him in my DK lineup earlier today.
He's 4.3 on DraftKings, which is like, that's high. That's as much as Cole Calhoun.
Okay, yeah, that's getting pretty high. So yeah, I think Santiago is a really good punt, like you mentioned. I think Taylor is a really good punt, like you mentioned. I don't know. Second base is really kind of ugly. Like even like my next couple guys are like elite-ish options like Cano against Bauer or like Kinsler against Quintana.
That's the one I'm leaning to. I would rather pay $400 more for a Kinsler versus a lefty and that lineup than 3.1 for still sort of an unknown player in Alcantara at the same position.
Uh-huh. So I couldn't fault you for that, but even those guys, like, their matchups aren't so good where I feel like I want to pay for them, and maybe Alcantara is starting to get to that point too. So I really feel like on DraftKings tonight I'm probably going to wind up punting.
Yeah, just with the way it works out with trying to get Teixeira and Moss and Calhoun and etc. I think Chris Taylor and Ramon Santiago are about to become core plays for me just based on being in a hashtag pretty good spot, which sucks. Like it's just like when Andrelton Simmons was 2.4 on FanDuel for like 2 weeks when he was batting second. Like, that worked out okay because Simmons is an okay hitter. I'm pretty sure Ramon Santiago is not at all.
He's not, but Taylor is.
Yeah. But Cahill is terrible, though.
Yeah, so I have no problem playing either.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're really helping the people out here. I mean, it's shortstop Starlin Castro, though, at 2.6 on FanDuel. I know he has the cold flag, but that is the direction I'm going versus Jorge De La Rosa.
No Jed Lowry tonight?
No, I didn't. I did my analysis this morning thinking he was going to be batting 6 like normal.
Yeah,
but
and he's batting second again, and he's, 2.7 there? So.
Yeah, he's $100 more. I mean, Lowry's probably, like, the best play. I mean, Jose Reyes is actually the best play, but with the way the dollars are coming out today, it's going to be hard to use him, I think.
Mm-hmm. I would agree.
Yeah.
And then you have basically your same punts. Marwin Gonzalez I could throw into the punt situation, not because the matchup's particularly good against Samardzija, but he's batting second. So anytime you have like a guy who's like near min price batting at the top of the order, he's always got to be an option as a punt.
Thank God baseball managers are so dumb that they think like, oh, like this fast middle infielder, they've batted second for the last 50 years of our game. So here you go, Ramon Santiago. Here you go, Marwin Gonzalez.
Yeah.
Like,
it's funny, too, seeing it from the Astros because they're such a progressive organization. Like, that's not the team I would expect to see it from. Like,
didn't they run a reverse splits lineup out the other day, though? I feel like that happened. I remember Dan talking about that.
Is Ben talking about it, I think, on Sunday.
Yeah, that sounds like it happened, which is, I mean, we've talked about that enough probably to bore everyone who listens to this show halfway to death, but reverse splits are very rarely like a real thing. So, I did forget to mention at catcher, Buster Posey is against a lefty in Liriano.
Yeah, we didn't mention him, but that's why I said when J-So was like my 2 or 3, Posey would be the other guy who's like 2 or 3.
Yeah, and that might be nice in cash games tonight because with all the other good catcher options, Posey will probably be under-owned relative to his projection.
Mm-hmm. And Liriano does struggle with righties, so.
All right, cool. Let's do the corner spots, starting with first base. Brandon Moss, obviously the top overall play. Probably gonna.
Well, over Cabrera, you're gonna push him over Cabrera.
I mean, against left-handed pitching, dude, like, or against right-handed pitching.
I think they're both really good and they're close, but I mean, Cabrera has a platoon against a not-so-good pitcher either, so.
I thought Quintana was your boy. I thought you loved that dude.
In the right matchups, I love anybody. Like, I think Quintana's better than people give him credit for, but he's still an above-average pitcher. He's not like a good pitcher. He's
actually way better. Like, every time I go to do the write-up, his allowed weighted on-base averages versus both hands are like way better than I think they're going to be. They're like underneath 310 for like both lefties and righties for his career.
His xFIP this year is like 330 or something, right? I mean, he's not that good, but he has been really good this year.
Yeah.
So I could see Moss, over Cabrera, especially once you factor in price.
Yeah.
Although Moss does have the cold flag, he's been, even when the rest of the team's been raking, he's been going like 0 for 4 lately, like in these good matchups. So
he walked last night,
He does worry me a little. Oh, he walked. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he worries me a little bit.
When you guys drafted, what slate did you draft?
I don't know. One that didn't have all the lineups out because Davis decided to pick that one.
I just clicked.
Because I just drafted Miguel Cabrera at under 11K on Fantasy.
Yeah, we didn't play that slate.
Yeah, that's dirty.
So I'm playing in a $56 against Magic Sports Guy. Grant also said there's been some high stake, like the high stakes action has been up with 108 and 56s. So it's a plug to them. They've got, but this kind of goes to the sharp salaries. You've got players like Trout, who's the highest at 14K, and Miggy
Pricing error, dude. Pricing error.
at 11K. It's sharp pricing.
I mean, it's just like ridiculous that Dan, who has like taught me to be price sensitive almost more than anyone, is being like, "Oh, how can you even consider Trout as a play today?" Like, what a dick.
Wait, is he really saying that?
No, he's just messing with me.
Oh, all right.
So at first base though, how much of an error is it that I have Teixeira in at first base instead of Moss on FanDuel?
How much does Teixeira cost on FanDuel? Teixeira's a good play today, so
He's 3.1. He's $600 cheaper. That's like the difference between punting an outfield slot or Cole Calhoun.
I don't think it's a mistake at all. I don't think. I think you could go with either one, but either way, it's not going to be a mistake. I think either one's a very viable option.
I think you're trying to get this. I think you're like trying to get a double dunk game out of both of them, basically. Like they have similar upsides and similar floors, where like they're both against a bad pitcher who is a little homer prone. Definitely, the pitcher is worse for Teixeira, like
But
way
Moss
worse.
is a better player overall, so yeah, they're both in good parks. So I mean, they profile pretty similarly. Moss is better, but that's why he's more expensive. So but Teixeira is really good too. So if you want to, save some money, I have no problem going Teixeira. And if you're gonna save money, it's gonna be with Teixeira. There's no one else you're looking at.
Yeah, I'm actually really interested to see the own percentages in these big tournaments between those two, because I think the fact that Moss has been in a hashtag pretty good spot every night for the last 6 nights, I think, and has gone 2 for his last 16 with like a bunch of strikeouts, while the A's lineup has just destroyed. Like, I know they were bad that one start, the one game versus Jeremy Williams, and all the others, like, they've scored like 5 runs a game over the last week, and Moss has done nothing.
Yeah. So Moss worries me a little bit. So if you go Teixeira, I'm totally cool with it.
Yeah. Trying to look at the Angels lineup. Someone just suggested Efren Navarro in chat. I don't have any read on him at all. I don't know if he's a good punt player or not. Like, I don't even know anything.
He's not a
about
very good player. He's batting low in the order. As a punt, I mean, where does he qualify? What position is he? First base or outfield?
I think he's both first base and outfield on DraftKings.
I don't hate him, but I feel like there's enough better options tonight where you don't need to take a guy who's batting that low in the order and who isn't particularly skilled to begin with. But I don't hate him. I mean, he's in a decent spot otherwise.
Okay. A much harder conversation to have is third base. So it was going to be Chase Headley for me until I saw that he was batting 7th because.
But Davis,
Yankees.
Batting order doesn't matter. Okay, we just went over this with Stephen Vogt.
No, I said it doesn't matter as much with a team like the Athletics that's so good 1 through 9.
So basically, it doesn't matter when the A's are going to score runs, but if the Yankees score runs on Martinez, it does.
Well,
matter.
you have to build it. You have to build in some volatility. The Yankees aren't as good of a team, so you have to build in the chance. Like, I think Martinez went 5 scoreless against them like 2 weeks ago. Like, you have to build in some volatility there. The volatility with the Athletics still exists, but volatility with them is more like scoring 2 runs instead of 10. Like, they're just a very good lineup, and so I think it. And I don't even think that's unreasonable to say that it matters less for a team like that. IMO. But anyways, so Headley is still sort of in play, but not really in play because batting 7th really does suck. So who are you looking at third base? I don't know. I have no idea.
I'm looking. Third base really isn't good tonight. Third base, I'm looking at potentially Todd Frazier. Because he is at home in Great American, and even though he doesn't have the platoon advantage, Cahill is just an absolute mess. Yeah. So I think there's a good chance Frazier's going to wind up in some of my lineups. Otherwise, it may just be like a punting kind of situation. Like, I don't even know exactly who. Like, I think Marwin qualifies at 3rd on DraftKings. I could see him as a potential punt. It's really ugly tonight.
It,
maybe Moustakis against Gibson.
Yeah, it's not pretty out here. I mean, the guy that I'm sort of looking at is Seager, obviously, but Seager is super expensive. Maybe you should talk about why you don't like Beltre.
Yeah, Beltre ranks high tonight, but I feel like McCarthy is a better pitcher now that he's made the changes that he's made with the Yankees than the system gives him credit for. A lot of his projection is based on what he was doing with Arizona, and Arizona basically told him, okay, scrap your cutter, which was previously, like, that was the pitch that he added that made him become good back in, like, 2011 when he joined the A's. Up until that point, he was a bad pitcher, and then he added the cutter so that he could give hitters a better look and kind of control the outside corner a little bit better and get some ground balls. And Arizona is just like, we don't want you to use the cutter anymore. Throw your sinker 50% of the time. And hitters just knew what to look for, so he was getting rocked. And now that he's with the Yankees are like, use the cutter. That's a pitch that works for you. And he's just been dominant with the Yankees now. And he's throwing to Brian McCann, who's a better catcher than he's ever basically thrown to in his career. So I think McCarthy's a really good pitcher now, and he's not a guy that I want to test Beltre against.
Yeah, that makes complete sense to me. I have not made a decision as to what I'm going to do with that slot, honestly. Like, I'm sort of lost as to the direction to go. Like, maybe someone will provide me with some analysis that is awesome. I do like Juan Francisco, though, just because not chasing last night's points, but their bullpen is worn out, obviously, because they had to pitch so many extra outs last night, basically, or so many extra pitches because they couldn't get anybody out. And it's a good offense, and it's not like Ruby De La Rosa is just like an amazing pitcher. And Francisco can give you the same sort of upside, really, that you're hoping for from playing someone like Beltre or Headley, which is home run or nothing.
Yeah. I think I'm going to wind up on Frazier, though. He's not that expensive. He's $3,300 on FanDuel, which is really reasonable. $4,400 on DraftKings, which isn't ideal, but you can definitely fit him in there at a position where other options are really kind of sketchy tonight.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about outfield. So, I mean, for me, like, I'm playing Trout on FanDuel. Anyone, like, we've probably talked about it enough on this show, but with the way Strasburg is priced, I think Trout is a pretty easy play. Mm-hmm. Batting second versus a mediocre at best pitcher. He's the best player in fantasy baseball. Like, no one even really comes close to what he's able to produce. So, I'm just locking him in there for that price. Are you with me on that?
I'm not locking him in, but I think there's a very good chance he's going to wind up in there because with Strasburg being so cheap, he's going to be easy to fit in, and he is underpriced. Not pricing error underpriced, but he's a guy who's very likely going to be in my lineup tonight.
Yeah, and I also really like his teammate Cole Calhoun batting leadoff, and finally at a reasonable price, sort of across the industry. He got up there for a while, sort of. He did,
because he had a whole bunch of like really good matchups right in a row, and he just raked. And he hasn't even been on my radar for a couple weeks now. So, he's come back down to earth, and now his price has, and now he's in a good matchup, so you need to exploit it. I don't know if I'll be able to fit him and Trout into my FanDuel, but if I have Trout on FanDuel, I'm definitely going to have Calhoun on DraftKings.
Yeah, he has a really attractive price tag on DraftKings. We're eligible at the outfield draft day DraftKings. Brandon Moss is sort of my top outfield play, including dollars per point, just because he has such a good upside tonight, and he's so good against right-handed pitching.
I think Justin Ruggiano, I played him last night. He didn't do a whole lot, but I think he's in a really good spot again tonight against a weak Colorado lefty. In Wrigley, the wind looks like it's going to be a non-factor, but still, De La Rosa is just so bad against righties. And I think Ruggiano is a good player in general. I think he's got some good pop in his bat, and it's a pretty good park for it. And he's, relatively inexpensive.
Some people are worried about the weather in that game, but I just went over and looked at the radar, and it looks like to me like hitters should probably be okay for that game. Definitely check again, but it looks like they're probably going to be all right tonight.
Yeah, it didn't look like it worried me too much. I mean, maybe a delay at some. Oh, it looks like it's gotten a little bit scarier since the last time I checked, but still, still not something I'm overly concerned about.
Okay. Sort of a guy that we haven't mentioned him at all yet, but Billy Hamilton. The one thing you can't do with a guy like Hamilton or D. Gordon is let them on base for free. Like, you have to make them work to get on base. You have to make them make contact with the ball. Well, Trevor Cahill can't really do that right now. He's walking 5 guys per 9 in the majors this year, and in his stint at AAA, he was walking 6.5 guys per 9 innings. So a pitcher who can't control the strike zone against Billy Hamilton, who in his career has been better against righties, I'm sort of just locking him into that outfield slot on FanDuel.
Reverse splits, FTW.
He has reverse splits.
Didn't you just say he's been better against righties?
He's a switch hitter.
Is he?
Yeah.
I think he's a righty.
No, he's a switch hitter.
Well, what I'm looking at is wrong then. Okay. Yeah, I thought he was a switch hitter. He is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, our database definitely has him as a righty, so we're gonna need to fix that because that's gonna make a big difference. Yeah, he's a switch hitter. That's why I was looking. I'm like, he's a righty? Okay.
Yep. Now, he granted he's not at all that good versus left-handed pitching and hasn't been in the minors or anything. So he's probably one of those guys who will abandon the left side or the right side of the plate, down the road.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, I definitely like Hamilton tonight. Who else?
Someone asked Blackman or Ruggiano. I wrote up Blackman, but I do like Ruggiano. Curious to your take on that.
I think I'd take Ruggiano before Blackman. I like Blackman too, but once you adjust for cores, Blackman's stats don't look nearly as good. So I think Ruggiano is the better play tonight, and he has the weaker pitcher.
Yeah, I wrote Blackman up. He's been good outside of course. He's been passable basically. His career WOBA is kind of skewed by a really bad first season, but last year he was above average. So I don't hate him as a play on FanDuel, but Ruggiano is better for sure. Kitchen, do you want to bring up or do you have any other outfielders you want to mention, Derek?
Not particularly. No one that screams out at me.
What's I don't have the link to you guys' game. What's it look like?
Oh, also Ellsbury and Gardner. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Ellsbury and Gardner.
Should have talked about those guys more. Those guys are both in hashtag pretty good spots.
Yeah, for sure.
Our game looks like you would expect it to. I took McCarthy and then took as many Yankees as I could, including someone who is not in the lineup. Zealous Wheeler is not in the lineup, so I'm gonna go replace him.
While you're replacing him, let me throw out Mark Trumbo too, who I feel like is still really cheap. And even though he's kind of a boomer bust kind of guy, I like the position that he's in tonight. He's in a really good ballpark. Leak has some home run tendencies. So
he's the new Carlos Beltran. He's the guy that the optimizer tool is going to continue to place in our lineup just because it thinks he's underpriced.
Because he is underpriced. Beltran is playing through an injury. Trumbo, if you believe he's healthy, is still a really good play, I think.
I believe your mom's healthy. TBH.
She is. Thank God.
Oh my gosh. WTH, Davis.
In my opinion, one of the...
Wait. Cardi, how healthy is she?
Yeah.
That was a really creepy turn, Kitch.
You said she's really healthy. You're
not.
You better hope she's not watching. She would be so upset to see this right now.
Before we guarantee some dongs, can I?
Well, yeah, she'd be upset at saying that she might be attractive, but the usage of dongs every day on the show not upsetting at all.
Can I ask why the Cards DFA George Kateris and signed AJ Przinsky? Is maybe George Kateris just a truly terrible person? Is he maybe just really mean and awful to be around?
I don't know. I feel like it's a very good question. I think Przinsky's a better player than Kateris, but I have a soft spot for Kateris as a fantasy player.
Clearly, you did not roster George Kateris the time he double donked that time.
I did. I had him. That's why I have a soft spot for him. But that's not to say he's a great player because he double donked once.
Nope, he double donked once. Great player. It's how that works.
How dare the whatever team it is, the Indians and then the Cardinals, designate George Kateris for assignment? Don't they know he double donked for Davis's DFS team once? Like,
well, this is after
the nerve of them.
This is after the Royals let him go and then replaced him with some human named Brett Hayes, who they just traded away in order to acquire Liam Hendricks, who is like, I hate the Royals. Okay, let's guarantee some dongs, though. Guarantee dong time, Derek.
Let's do it.
You go first.
Obvious guy. Let's go with Mike Trout, and I'll leave you Brandon Moss. And then
I'm taking Teixeira as my obvious guy.
As your obvious guy?
Yeah.
All right. Under the radar, I'll take Trumbo.
Under the radar, I'm going to take Billy Hamilton.
That's why Teixeira is your obvious, because you're taking Billy Hamilton as your
Billy Hamilton has as many dongs this year as Robbie Cano.
That's sad.
For both of them, really.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he plays in GAB, and we talk about it all the time. GAB is more of a home run hitter's park than anyone wants to give it credit for.
Yep.
You taught me that, Derek.
That's why I got Trumbo.
Yes, Kitchen. Why are you laughing?
I'm just laughing at the bond that has been forged between you two.
Yeah, we're going to get him so addicted. He's going to be like, oh, man, J.R. Smith missed a 3 that would have given me the lead on the shot on FanDuel.
Davis, you taught me to take players that shoot a lot.
Yep. And then that's going to be a really great idea because Draft Street doesn't exist anymore.
No. Oh, painful. Yep. Well, that will do it for today's show. And, right, guys?
I think that's about it.
We have I'm going to regret this. I can already tell mine is either going to be playing McCann or not playing McCann, whatever I end up deciding to do with him. Yeah.
I think...
Because unlike most nights at catcher, there's real opportunity cost there tonight.
I feel like with me, it's going to be either playing Moss or not playing Moss.
Yeah.
I feel like for me, it's going to be whatever second pitcher I use on DraftKings.
Nah, Shark's going to eat him up. Nom, 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 nom.
Oh, man. So, on behalf of the Fantasy Insiders team, Davis Maddock, Derek Hardy, his healthy mom, and myself, we will sign off and wish you the best tonight. Derek, I have an attractive mom as well. It's nothing to be ashamed of. But if you have pictures, I'd like to see them. Just so we can confirm how healthy she is. Davis, you're a pervert. I can't believe you even brought that up. So, yeah, basically tomorrow, 5 Eastern, hopefully one of you guys listening, watching, participating will have won something big last night, tonight. Man, my mind, I just need to get my mind right. I registered for a bunch of teams. I just need to get focused. Right now, you guys have me not focused, so that's...
How you just listen to us talk about nothing but baseball for an hour?
I know, but then the whole mom thing got me off track. So, anyways, yeah, but we'll be around. We'll be around tonight, and good luck to you guys. We'll see you later.
Dude, Texas double donging. I don't know. Is he one of those guys who got old and then lost all his bat speed, Derek?
He's definitely lost a lot since when he was younger, but he's still a good play tonight. There we go.
Hardy's mom got it going on.